Can everyone hear me? There we go. I think we're going to go ahead and get started and see if others come walking in. So welcome to our presentation. My name is Laura Marmolejo, Department Chair for Manufacturing here at ACC. And I'm really excited to have our visitor today. Sabre Cook is amazing, and she's going to share some of her experiences with you. She's a unique individual because of the fact that she's an engineer, like many people are. She's female, and she's a race car driver, and those are very unique characteristics. And I am excited because I'm always about encouraging more women to pursue fields that are different. And she's been racing, I thought it was 13, but she corrected me to 8. She's been racing since she was 8 years old, which is amazing. And she's also a mechanical engineer, went to the Colorado School of Mines, which is a really tough school. I know, because my son tried to get in. So I'm impressed that she made it out, survived, and now she's following her passion, and she's racing cars and doing what she wants to do and applying what she learned. So I'm really excited to have her. So thank you for joining us, and I'm going to pass the torch to you. Do we have one?
Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, guys. How are you? Good? We got a small crowd, but Gina just told me small crowd's a good crowd, so. All right, so my name is Sabre Cook, and as she mentioned, I'm a race car driver, mechanical engineer, as well as a driver coach. But today, I am mostly here to talk to you about my engineering. So I went to the Colorado School of Mines, graduated in 2017 with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, and then in 2018, oh, can you go to the next slide? The 2 next, sorry. One more. And another one, well, to the next. One more. Okay, cool. And then so from 2018, I won the Infinity Engineering Academy. There are 7 global finals. Right now, the program is on hold because of COVID, but US is one of those 7 global finals. And because of that, I won a placement with the Renault F1 team as well as Infinity Nissan in the UK. So at the beginning of 2019, I started working in the vehicle testing program at Infinity, and then I shortly after went to Renault F1 and worked in suspension composite design. After that, I actually moved back to the States and did more work as an independent contractor. One of the companies I mostly worked with was Formula Mazda, and then had a bit of work with Cranfield Simulation as well. And then there's a new Formula Mazda car coming out this year called the FMZR, and I did final design and integration for that early of this year. So watch out for that new race car. But I guess something I really wanted to point it out, especially on this slide, you can see there's obviously lots of hands-on things going on, and I think what's not emphasized enough in US schools is getting that hands-on experience while you're an undergraduate. Because having that experience as an undergraduate sets you up way more for success once you get into the field. Because I can't tell you how many times that engineers that are up in the design office design something that is no way feasible for them to actually make it in real life or actually fit on the car. And they don't bother to go down and see how things are actually being done. So it's important to get that hands-on experience, learn what it really takes to put your whole engineering project together. Can you go to the next slide, please? So for me, I was one of those weird kids that always really loved school. And I fell in love with math in 3rd grade, and this woman, if you can go to the picture, my 3rd grade teacher, I remember learning long division from her, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, and I know that sounds extremely nerdy, but I was really lucky to have some amazing teachers in my life from a very young age. And I think it's really important to emphasize how important having good teachers are, because without those amazing people around me, I maybe it would have taken me longer to get into engineering and math and science, or maybe I wouldn't have had so much interest in school. And so I think a lot of people kind of get put off by math, science, or other things in school because they think, oh, I don't understand it, I'm no good at this. But it's maybe not that. Maybe you just need to approach it in a different way, or you need someone to show you a different way to go about things. So these are some questions I want you guys to ask yourself. because too many times I see people that get involved in a certain occupation, and it's maybe not what they love to do. They just think, well, this is what I'm kind of good at, and so I'm just going to go do this, or this is what's expected of me, and then they end up in a career that they don't love. And you spend most of your life working, unfortunately, but so you might as well make it something that you love. So just choose wisely, and it's better you figure that out now than obviously years and years down the road, and you've wasted your valuable time going through your degree and everything, and it's not exactly what you want or what you're passionate about. So don't forget to ask those questions. I also think it's really important to emphasize that when you go into a program, it's important to learn how you learn. And I know that kind of sounds weird, but there was a great lady who gave me some advice when I was young, and I read this book. There's tons of books on it, and I recommend each of you maybe go find one of those. And it teaches you to basically how you take information as quickly and effectively as possible. And it's going to be different for every single one of you. And I think I use this as an engineer, I use this as a coach, I use this as a driver, because in this fast-paced world, especially as people involved in tech and STEM, there's so much information coming out repeatedly. So we need to be able to take in this information and process it quickly, and then see if we can apply it to what we're doing. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about just 3 of the main challenges that I've experienced in my career so far. The first one was, as an undergraduate, I'm sure all of you will eventually go through your senior design project. And so for me, mine was about continuous steel casting. And as a mechanical engineer and the rest of the people in my team, none of us had a specialty in steel or materials. So we had a lot to learn, right? So we had an advisor that happened to be one of the best in the world, actually, on this subject. But the problem was, we were a group of young engineers that didn't know what to ask. Like, we didn't know the right questions to ask. And I think so many young people suffer from not knowing what the right questions are. And he was obviously so amazing at what he's done that he's on another planet, and we're just trying to understand initially. Another challenge that I had was at Infinity, I was asked to introduce this new technology into the standards of testing that they've had in place for many years, and learn how to integrate it into our current testing practices. I spent a lot of time doing that, a lot of trying to make it work and understand how it would fit easily within the program, and the engineers could easily implement it in our day-to-day procedures. But in the end, the Japanese people are very traditional people, and bringing in new ways of doing things isn't always in their comfort zone. So in that case, I just learned that you still have to be open to innovative new ideas, and just because maybe the company you're at doesn't necessarily want to implement those things, maybe it's not that you're doing something wrong, maybe you're just in the wrong company. And then a third one was at Renault F1. So in F1, it's an extremely compact time schedule. We have so many races a year, we build, design, and make a new car every single year. So there's a lot that goes into that. So time schedules are extremely tight, and in the process, as a young engineer, you get thrown in and you're like, okay, this is what we want, and we need it by this time. So with that, obviously, if you haven't worked in the group in a long time, it can be hard to know exactly what their standards are. So can you go to the next bit? There's 3 things that would have literally helped me go through these challenges much more effectively and probably mitigated them altogether. So the first one, communication. Obviously, if I would have communicated very clearly and even saying like, hey, I don't know the right questions to ask. That goes along with the second one, which is a clear, adaptable plan. I cannot stress enough how important it is as an engineer to take a moment. I know we always get excited about problems and we're always like throwing out the first things that come to our minds, but taking a minute to just calmly and objectively look at a scenario and situation and say, okay, what's the problem? What do we know about it? Who's our audience? And what are we trying to achieve? As well as what's our free body diagram that's going on, and so we can objectively see everything that's going into the problem. And both those tie into the third one, that is relationships. And I know it sounds weird as an engineer telling you you've got to have good relationships. But I'm sure, as many of you figured out, is you can't get somewhere all by yourself. So you need to have a good team. If I would have communicated, had a clear adaptable plan where I sat down with my senior and I said, look, this is what I think you want, and mitigated every single thing, it probably would have saved us both a lot of time. So I think those are the 3 things that would have helped me in 3 of my biggest challenges. So enough of all that, though. This is why I'm here this week. So there is the W Series race at CODA. These are regional F3 cars that we will be racing. Caitlin will be racing with me over there. So we are in town for that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about motorsports engineering because it's a path that not a lot of people know about. So can you go to the next slide? So what do you guys think motorsports engineers do? Can you guess?
Optimize design.
Yeah?
I guess analyze data.
Yeah? Do you know what else? Anything else?
Big test cars.
Yeah? Yeah, I guess those are the main ones. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, exactly. So there's so many different things that you guys can do in motorsports. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, say it again. Yeah, those are parts of it. So I wanted to just quickly show you guys a few awesome people that I'm blessed to know, and they're going to tell you a little bit about what they do.
Hi, my name's Charlotte. I'm a data and systems engineer for the W Series. My role is to look through all the data for the cars as they run on track and make sure they're all running healthily and as they should be.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexandre Vedi and I am a race engineer. So if I have to sum up the job of a race engineer, I would say that it's to be the link between the team and the drivers and make sure the drivers can get the best out of their car and out of themselves each time they go on track. So the 5 main topics of my work on the track would be 1, to organize the sessions, which means what run plan we're doing, how much fuel in the car, what tires we use, etc. 2, to analyze the driving with the drivers and make sure we identify together where they can gain time. 3, to set up the car and make sure we do the right setup changes. 4, to communicate with the drivers, off track but also on track with the radios. And 5 would be to exchange with the mechanics and make sure they know what to do on the car and they make sure they tell me what I need to know.
So that's on track, and then these are 2 people that work in design in the design office.
Hi there, my name is James Bryant Gawley and I am a model design engineer for Alpine F1 team. What my role involves is working closely with the aerodynamicists, surfacers and model makers in the wind tunnel and helping to develop our 60% scale model car that we use for aerodynamic testing. This involves a lot of surfacing and bodywork as well as measuring data on cooling, suspension, aero loads. We do a lot of really cool and innovative data collecting and testing within the tunnel as well, so we do a lot of development with that. And basically the car that you see every race weekend is what we're building up in the tunnel before it gets sent to full size. So yeah, that's a bit about what I do. Thanks.
Hi there, I am Lisa Veldman and I am a suspension design engineer within the Alpine F1 team. My main job is to work on composite components such as wishbones and fairings. I always knew I wanted to work in Formula 1, and when I was at university, I found my passion in composite materials. A few years of hard work and dedication later, I received my master's degree in composite material science. Hopefully you will work hard as well and find your passion at university too. And with that, maybe you can become my future colleagues. Good luck, enjoy, and see you later.
She's got a great personality, huh? Okay, so do you guys think you could see yourselves in any of these roles? Maybe? A little bit? Not so much? Raise your hand if you want to be a race engineer. Maybe. Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? What about design? Design's pretty fun. Yeah, there you go. What if you absolutely don't want to do engineering? That's okay. There's so many other men and women involved in the sport that are not engineers, they're not drivers, they're mechanics, they're machine shop, they're welders, they're composite, I can't remember the name, they work in the clean room quite a lot. And then there's also, machinists that are there maintaining the machines throughout the factory most of the day. And there's people like the lovely people I have here from W Series that are in marketing, media, there's lawyers, there's business people. Like, there's so many opportunities in motorsports because at the end of the day, it's just like any other industry where it has so many aspects. So if you're not always interested in just being an engineer, there's other things you can do that are also way more hands-on or maybe not as technical. And then you can obviously get involved in some pretty awesome on-track things as you've seen. Next one, please. So I thought I would just pretty much wrap it up into the main takeaways that I would recommend to you guys to be successful with engineering and life. I use these in life too. So the first one is, there we go. So build a strong database. This applies to all aspects of my life. So I write down and record every experience that I have, whether it's on track with engineering and coaching, because it's important to build on those experiences in order to approach new problems that come along. It saves me so much time if I approach a new problem and I'm like, wait a minute, this sounds a little bit like maybe we could apply something we've done in the past. And so having that sort of experience to leverage on is extremely important as an engineer. And then the next one is, I mentioned before, is to learn how you learn. It's extremely important to be effective as an undergraduate and obviously throughout your career. The next one I would say, critical thinking. Obviously, that seems obvious, right? As an engineer, you think you'd need that. But I just want to caution you that sometimes we think we're thinking critically, but maybe we have a filter on some sort of problem or situation we're given. And so just really make sure that you're asking yourself if you're looking at things in an objective way whenever you approach a problem, and you're not bringing any sort of bias into it. Next would be to make a plan, as I mentioned, because if you don't make a plan, you can't adapt the plan, and nothing ever goes to plan, right? Everything takes longer than you think it's going to. Everything, some things you have to adapt, and it ends up being maybe something that you completely didn't expect. But if you didn't have a plan to begin with, it's going to make it a lot harder to get to that end result. And the next thing is work hard, but work smart, because you can be out there grinding and you can outwork the next person, but if they're working smarter than you and they're being more effective in what they're doing, they're going to be more successful. So just remember, it's not always about killing yourself. I know as engineers it's hard to imagine, but work smart. Another thing is communication and relationships are key to champion level success. So you can get you can get so far on your own, but to make it to the very, very top, you need good people around you. You cannot physically do it by yourself. Trust me, I tried. It doesn't work. So don't be afraid to lean on those around you. Hear their perspectives, value their opinions, and obviously look at things objectively with whatever they give you, and make sure you apply it correctly into the situation. Next thing for me, I know some people don't always make this connection with engineers, but I have a strong belief that if you have a healthy body, you'll have a healthy mind. And for me, when I really started to prioritize sleep, good nutrition, it really, really changes the way I think, and it drastically increases my critical thinking ability. So don't slough it off. I know it's easy as an undergraduate. Oh, I'm just going to have, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it really does matter. And so just take note of that, and you'll really thank yourself down the road. And the final thing is enjoy the process. And as a senior in college, I got told in my senior design project class, fail frugal, fail fast. Because failure is where you learn some of your most important lessons, and you truly own those lessons. There was, recently, I was working with Formula Mazda, and I said, well, why don't we put this brake assembly together this way? And my boss was like, yeah, go ahead, try it. Didn't tell me no. He let me sit there and try and figure out, very quickly that was not going to work. But he already knew it wasn't going to work, but he didn't tell me that. He let me try and let me fail and let me figure that out for myself. Because that lesson, I will remember it much more than him just saying, no, that doesn't work. So don't be afraid to fail. Use those lessons to go forward. Make it part of your database. And now, do you guys have any questions?
Nobody has any questions? Don't be shy.
Yeah.
Is this your first time racing at COTA this weekend?
No, it is not. This will be my 4th time.
What's your favorite thing about the track?
Probably the S's.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead. So I ended up taking a class in high school that was called mechanical engineering, and I just liked how mechanical engineering let me branch off into so many different things. So if I decided like I wanted to go in motorsports, I could, but I can also use it to go into literally almost every other industry. So I guess that's why I chose it, because of its diversity. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm not in engineering at all. I'm in mostly media production. What advice would you kind of give? Oh, hello. Oh, what advice would you give to someone who's, really in the future focusing on a career just generally in Formula One?
As a media person,
Yeah.
I think a lot of there's young photographers and videographers that I've met in the recent years, and what they do is they go to like smaller series like F4 or local like GT races, and they capture a lot of good content, put a really good strong videos together, and then obviously use that as their portfolio going forward. And so and obviously those small teams in the more amateur series are gonna love that someone's going to take videos and photos for them, so they're gonna get a benefit just as well as using that to go forward and use it as your portfolio for the more professional series later on.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm not sure if I heard this right, but I think the suspension person who does the suspension engineering or something was a data scientist, or were they a computer scientist?
That does a suspension?
Yeah. I thought I heard she had.
She has a degree in composites and in aero.
In
So she
aero?
not data. She didn't do data.
Okay,
but
yeah.
The gentleman that did the wind tunnel though, he has a degree in mechatronics.
Okay, so
So-
yeah, it's not completely anything to do with engineering. You can be anything and still have a job in design. Or are there
Yeah, like there's a lot of. You don't necessarily have to be an engineer to be involved in design. There's a lot of computer scientists that have come in, but those two they are engineers. They did graduate as engineers.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Based on everything you just had on the last slide, what was your favorite project you had? Based on everything you had on the last slide, what was your favorite project you did that had all of those things in it?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess I would probably really enjoy the Formula Mazda with the final integration, because I was able to take on so many different parts of the project rather than having a more specialized, limited view with the F1 or Nissan.
Yeah. What's the interface between the people who are like on the front lines of kind of like in the trenches and like the engineers? Like how much do you get to like, I guess, talk to them specifically, or do you have people that like are kind of go-betweens?
So there's engineers that they're race engineers or strategy engineers that are always at the track. But as far as like in regards to F1, they have like a resource back at the factory that's based in the ops room. And so there's like a live data system that obviously depending on the person gets access to it. But there's different teams will kind of code their own like data programs, data transfer programs to get the live data back to the factory so they can use the engineering sort of database there in order to make decisions. But there's also, like in our series, we have a program where we download the data off the cars. It's the same, it's like a basic platform where we download, look at the data, and all the decisions are done at the track with our race engineers.
Got it. So it's mostly like a technical interface. It's not like a person-to-person, like this is what I'm getting when I'm turning, or like.
You mean between driver and engineer?
Sure.
So between driver and engineer, so we have our race engineers that's assigned to us, and so the race engineer is the only person that communicates with us when we're on track.
Got it. Okay.
So they obviously debrief with us after a session, and they'll go through with what our feeling or what we need to improve for the next session and talk about the changes on the car that we want to make for the next session.
What was your favorite thing about racing?
My favorite thing about racing? Everything. Anybody else?
I was just curious if you had a favorite track.
Oh, favorite track. I'd probably have to say Brands Hatch is pretty special, but also Laguna Seca here in the States is pretty awesome too. Yeah. So as far as hands-on at school, we have a thing that we do after sophomore year that's called a field session. So that was the most hands-on that we got, and it's like over a 2-month period where we have a lot of like in-person labs. We have a lot of like short projects, as well as what we had called were MEL labs, so it's multi-engineering disciplinary labs. And so we did a lot of, very like short projects, short like hands-on projects on many different like fields that would apply to mechanical. But outside of school is more what I was talking about, going and getting internships or working. A lot of people I guess don't know is like you can go and volunteer for a local or amateur race team, and they'll give you the experience that you're looking for, and at least that's somewhere to start.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So. Deal with the W series. Cool. My question is, kind of from the engineering mindset. If you look back in the history of F1 and other series that have fed into that, there have been various advancements that have led to either certain technologies falling away or certain things being banned. For example, I think it was somewhere in the early 80s, there was a race car that had a active aerodynamic system where it used a fan to actually suck itself down to the ground.
Yeah.
Right? And let's say, for example, I think Tyrrell P6, that one wasn't so much, from my understanding, more of a rules ban. It was more of a thing of we can't do 4 small tires on the front all the time. It's not economically feasible kind of thing, right? So with that in mind, I'm aware that, throughout history of F1, there have been people that have kind of bent the rules in really ingenious ways to bring things around over and over, like traction control and whatnot, which I think has recently been legalized in F1. I'm not sure about that, but I know that they've had fights around that.
Traction.
What are you seeing that's happening maybe in the W Series or F1 that's really cool, that's probably going to end up banned because it's too awesome?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'd have to be more in the know right now, like, because I'm not actually working for one of them currently. But there's a lot of like good resources online that you can find out about things that people are like publicly doing on F1's site. Like I know Alfa Romeo has just created a new roll hoop on top of the car that's actually made out of like carbon structured, not a carbon, but it's like the shape of the carbon in aluminum. And so like that's making the cars extremely light. So obviously like they want the cars to be lighter, but there's like innovative things like that are more or public, but I guess like that could be banned. I mean, don't know of anything in the current season that's at risk of that, because I think it would have already been brought to our attention, because the last one was the Ferrari situation, and that's obviously very public at this point.
One of the other things that came to mind was
DOS?
Dual axis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've actually banned that now. They're not allowed to use it anymore.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know as through college, like having personal projects and such is very important. But even at the level you're at, do you work on any personal projects yourself or anything that's outside of your job in racing?
That's outside of my job in racing. Yeah, so I like MATLAB is a great tool if you can use it with it's a bit crazy sometimes, and if you don't stay in it, it's like a foreign language, right? You need to speak the language in order to remember it. But when I was using it more, you can use that actually quite a lot to record and predict setup changes. So like setting up, or you can do it through an Excel spreadsheet, but just like basically setting up what the overall spring rates of each of the, you like simplify the suspension system and make those into spring rates, and you can kind of predict what sort of setup you're going to need based on the track. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you feel about the balance between like sort of open and proprietary technology development in F1, having been on a team?
You mean like that they can transfer over into like OEM manufacturing? Is that what you're saying?
I think I more mean like the culture of sort of secrecy instead of open development. Like when people try to keep, or they're trying to keep certain development secret from other teams. I'm curious, like having been on a team, like when you see that play out, like as an engineer who perhaps has aspirations for like these technological evolutions to like be more widespread, right? And we all make progress together. I just wondered how you felt about like the way that proprietariness works within that ecosystem.
Obviously, like, yes, maybe if we all fully shared and were more transparent, we would advance further in technology. But at the end of the day, I also think that competitiveness is what drives the human race forward. If we were all just easygoing and sharing a lot of things, then there wouldn't be anything to drive us. So I think the competitive and secrecy is actually kind of essential to keep humans moving forward.
Okay, I have a women in tech question right here.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. What is your biggest obstacle that you found being a woman in a male-dominated field, and any general advice for women going into a male-dominated field?
I guess in general, men love to assume that you don't know the same level of knowledge that they do. And I guess, so that's been the most difficult thing, is just like learning that you've just kind of got to take a moment, step back, just accept that obviously that's their viewpoint, but sort of almost just like brushing that aside and saying, look, I deserve to be here, I've put in the work, I've earned my degree, I've earned this job, and sort of taking that to just be confident in when you're in those situations and not let them talk down to you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, Sabre. So my son graduated from the Colorado School of Mines 2020, Dante Ramirez.
Oh, congrats.
So, yeah, it's a really tough school. He shared, obviously going through, raising an engineer, a mechanical engineer. He works now in Fort Collins at a place called Advanced Solutions. And but the question was, how much, to piggyback on Eric's question, is how much, so when you win a race, how much is that attributed to the driver and the edge that's secret, the competitive secret edge that a car may have over, if you had to put that in a percentage, how much would you say? I mean, because they both matter, right? Yeah. But which one, and I don't know if I'm phrasing the question right, but yeah, I guess when cars win or teams win, I mean, obviously it's a collaborative effort, but how much of that would be because that car had an advantage that no one else had, or because the driver's just like mega awesome, like how?
Yeah. I guess it depends on the series. So like with F1, obviously a Williams can't win a race outright, but so it really does depend on the series and how open the rules are. But obviously with W Series, everything is more technically regulated. We all run the same cars, same chassis. There's a small setup window that we're allowed to operate in. So in those situations, is more based on the driver. But obviously F1 it's a little different. And then when you look at championships like IndyCar, it does pay to be with a bigger team because they've had more time to develop like the small niches that they still have, like suspension, even though they're the same chassis. So it really depends on what the regulations are that are in place in the championship.
And when you finish a race, are you like well aware of like, man, that car had something that, what did they have? Like, do you feel like that there was an advantage there that y'all didn't have? Is that easy to
It can be sometimes. Obviously, yeah. It can be more obvious that someone has a better advantage.
Better system.
In general, well, if you ask most racing drivers, they're going to tell you every other car's cheating anyways. Honestly, sometimes it's not so obvious, and I guess the teams will sometimes really make it subtle, especially when it comes to like GT championships where there's obviously the BOP is in place and they don't want to show how fast the car really is. So then it becomes a bit of a mind game sort of situation.
Interesting.
For my question, I was wondering where can I see your team race, and is it like still available to buy tickets to see your team race?
You can watch on BN Sports USA here in the States. Sometimes there's a Facebook Live link that you can follow as well. And then as far as tickets to go in person, I believe there's still general admission tickets open that you can buy, but I think all the grandstands are sold out.
Okay.
But I think you can still buy general admission online, is what I saw. I think, but you won't have anywhere to, like, you obviously have to just sit wherever. Yeah.
What time do you race?
We race twice. On Saturday, we race at 5:30, and Sunday we race at 11, I think. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you find it difficult not to speed?
All the time. But I have a bit of a mom car, so I tried not to give myself something that I knew I would get in trouble with.
I imagine I-35 is probably pretty difficult to sit in traffic like for.
Yeah, I did get a little more road rage when I was younger, but I think I've calmed down now. So I try to do my best. But anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
Let's just go ahead and piggyback off my question from earlier. So have you ever had anybody volunteer down at like your pit during any race like that? And if so, how was the experience? Like what information was given to them from start to finish, the data that was collected, were they able to understand that? Just so on and so forth, just like that.
Yeah, there's been volunteers with some of the amateur, like SCCA is a good series to check out. They have a lot of teams that are open to having new students or do mentorship programs with students in colleges to come to the shops. And they obviously they could be very green, but everyone always tried to try to give them as much information as they could and help them learn as much as possible. But they obviously they won't put you in a position to fail. They'll only give you, they'll step you up a bit as a time. They won't obviously give you such a critical job and then cause a distress or discomfort for anybody else.
Okay, cool, thank you.
I was just more curious, do you work on like your personal car like yourself, or do you take it to like a shop or anything like that?
Well, so I try to do as much as I can by myself, but then certain things, like sometimes, like I'll be honest, I just went and paid to get my oil changed because I don't have the proper stuff at my house. But I did change my brakes like a few months ago, so it really just depends on what's more effective or efficient. And obviously, if I don't have like a full-on lift to do the work in my garage, I'm gonna take it to a shop. But I'll do what I can.
Where do you see yourself in like the next 5 years? Do you see yourself staying with doing racing, branching off, or?
In the next 5 years, I mean, right now I'm fully focused on being a driver. Engineering is great because you can do it until you're very old, and so I plan to do that after I'm done chasing my dream.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I got a question. Your style of driving, do you consider yourself a risk taker? Are you conservative? How do you, when you're in the heat of the race, do you transform into something? I mean, what's your mindset? How do you?
Do I go Hulk?
Yeah. I mean, because
I
mean, you're obviously like going, super fast. So.
I guess in a race situation, the race part of it tends to be my strong point. I think I still have the most overtakes of the season. So I guess that comes from my karting background. I just from a young age, just being around those like close racing situations. But I definitely still have the engineering side of me where sometimes I wish I took more risks, but I think the other half of me sometimes holds me back a little bit. And so I guess I would say I take calculated risks.
Great response from an engineer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mechanical engineering brought you to racing, and you're talking about doing mechanical engineering or engineering for the rest of your life. What industry would you want to go into next besides racing?
If it's outside of motorsports, I would probably go into renewable resources, as well as I'm actually really interested in space. So there's actually, for the ladies out there, there's a high demand for females with STEM degrees, just so you know, that to be astronauts. So check that out. Anybody else?
Sorry, just to follow up. So there are still single-day general admission for Friday and Saturday, but not for Sunday. Just so
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Are we still going to ask the questions?
They've been handing out the...
Okay. It's up to you. You just let me know.
I think if anyone else has any other questions, she was going to quiz you. You know, I know you're in school, but...
So I'm curious as to, like, what do you tell yourself whenever you feel like giving up or like things aren't going your way?
That's a great question. I guess it's about like kind of I guess it comes from like this sort of mindset I've had from a young age that no matter like what disadvantage I had or what my circumstances were, I was going to work hard enough to make up for all of that. So I guess that just sort of like self-belief and want to succeed against whatever the obstacles are pushes me forward. But obviously that doesn't always happen. You know, we have the days where we feel like there's no motivation, and that's completely normal. So I guess on those days I say just like, you know, be kind to yourself, let yourself kind of have a reset, and then just reevaluate exactly why you're doing what you're doing. And sometimes reminding yourself of that why and what, like, you know, gives you that light and really lights you up inside, that's going to spur you forward into the next thing.
What advice would you give to, let's say, an elementary school girl about her future?
I would probably tell her to go for whatever she wants. And obviously don't let other people set limitations on you. And if you want to do something, go for it. There is really nothing that you cannot do. And if you put your mind to something, and I know it sounds so cliche, but really, if you decide you're going to do something and take active steps every day to do that, you're going to get there sooner or later. But I also want to make a side note that all of you out there, you may, obviously a lot of you probably aren't parents right now, but if you are, I think it's really important to say that it's extremely, it affects your child's life so much on how you give them opportunities when they're young. Like my parents, they didn't treat me like a boy or a girl. They just let me pursue whatever I wanted to do. So I think it's really important to make that point that parents, it really is up to you to let your child try what they're passionate about and not categorize them as a male or female, and just let them go for what they really love.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you for all asking for questions. I'm glad y'all weren't too shy. So I just want to thank you.
I'm not so scary.
She's not scary, right? So yes, I wanted to just thank everyone for coming, and I think they're going to hang around a little bit in case you have any additional one-on-one questions. She also has her colleague that will be available to answer questions. So thank you again, and like I said, just let us know if there's anything, any questions you have. She'll be here just a little bit longer. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Victory goes to Alice Powell. She's there. Chadwick wins round 2.
Alice Powell wins at Silverstone. Jamie Chadwick sees the checkered flag. Alice Powell wins at Zandvoort. What a final 2 races of the year we have in prospect.